One, may I extend to you my most sincere good wishes for a blessed vernal equinox, right? BALANCE, balance. We could use a little balance on this swiftly tilting planet that seems to be rocketing toward chaos more and more every day. But as we move from this season of darkness into a season of light, may we all find some balance in our lives. Today is, of course, the vernal equinox, March 20th, 2025, day 1121 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'm Peter Alexievich, and this is the news we are waking up to. Now, last night we saw the Russians send 171 drones, of which the Ukrainians intercepted 138. Now, that's an 80.7 interception rate, right? Percentage interception rate, almost 81%. That means that almost 20% of the drones got through. And boy, they caused some havoc. It was a tough night last night. It was a loud, long night last night. Now, I think the thing we want to start our conversation with today is what's happening up in Kursk and Belgorod. There is, if you take a look here, you can see there's a little dot down here. That's a town whose name I'm not going to try to say. It starts with a D. See it down here? Now, this line is Ukraine on the left, Russia on the right. This blue up here is all of Kursk that Ukraine still holds. And here's the town of Sudza, where there's another little dot. From this dot to this dot is 27 kilometers, a little more than 17 miles or so. So not far at all, right? Not as the crow flies. Of course, you got the Russian and North Korean armies in between the Ukrainians down here on the border and up the Russians up there in Sudza. Here is the salient that forced, we believe, the tactical withdrawal of the Ukrainians from most of their territory in Kursk. But what if that's not what's going on? Now, look, I want to be very clear. We don't know what's going on. There may be nothing going on. What we're about to talk about here, this so-called incursion into Belgorod, may be just a feint. It may be a psychological tool to make sure that Russian and North Korean troops stay pinned in Kursk and Belgorod regions. It could be just that simple. It could be a tactic to prevent an incursion by the Russians into Sumy. Right now, the Russians seem to be, by all reports, building up troop concentrations up here, right behind this ruler box is the town of Sumy, and they seem to be building up troop concentrations as if they're going to come into Sumy. Down here in Kyiv, they're building up force concentrations as if they're going to come into Kyiv. And then down in Zaporizhia, they're building up force concentrations as if they're going to go to Zaporizhia city. So despite all of this ceasefire nonsense talk that Trump is pushing, despite all of this discussion of peace talks, the Russians are building up troops for apparently a major spring offensive in one or more areas of Ukraine. And it did seem to have gotten kicked off when the North Koreans came in and split this salient right like a hot knife through butter. They came in. 150 self-propelled Coxsans. There are 170 millimeter North Korean self-propelled howitzer, along with 1,500 fresh gunnery troops just in from North Korea, and 4,000 of the North Koreans, which is about half of what was left in Kursk. Massive attack, Ukrainians withdrew. Now we're getting these reports, mostly from the Russians. I want to highlight that. Kyiv is very quiet on this. But the Russians are saying that there's lots of heavy armor and as many as 2 battalions, somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 men, pouring over the border in Belgorod, with fighting going on around this city down here, just 17 miles from Sudza. Now again, most of the information we're getting is coming from the Russians, so it is to be taken not with a grain of salt, but with a salt cellar, right? If you have high blood pressure, don't listen to this report at all. You got to take so much salt. However, some video has emerged, some from Russian telegrammers, some from Ukrainian, and it doesn't show a big force like that. It shows some engineering vehicles, a couple of tanks, some armored personnel carriers, maybe 200 troops. So it does appear that there's at least 200, might not be 2,000, but there's 200. Now, could it be 2,000? It could be. What has Kyiv said about this? Not much. Zelensky said something very interesting, though, this morning. He said there is an ongoing operation there that he cannot discuss, but he said sometimes it might look like someone is running away, but really they're just changing their focus, basically, is what he said. That's not a direct quote. Now, what could that mean? Now, again, it could be bullshit, right? It could be, this is a diversionary tactic down here. We want to pin Russian troops inside of Russia. We don't want them coming into Ukraine. Makes perfect sense. Then again, where they're going in is so close to this salient that the Russians and North Koreans created in Kursk. One cannot help but wonder if the Ukrainians think that with all these Russians and North Koreans pinned down in here, if they couldn't come in here and backdoor them and encircle them. Now, look, I don't know that that's what's happening. I don't know that much of anything is happening. But a number of analysts that I listen to have suggested that given some elements of the terrain, given the force concentrations in the area, and what we understand about the North Korean and Russian losses as they retook Kursk, it is not impossible that that's what's happening. And if that's what's happening, it could prove to be a masterstroke. Now, of course, the Russians, for their part, they are saying that, yes, this incursion is happening, and we have repelled it. Right? Everybody's gone. We've won. It's just like when they first went into Kursk. It's very reminiscent of that, what I'm hearing from the Russians. So we're not entirely sure what's happening here. And as it unfolds, I will let you know. Now, right across the border in Sumy, the governor is worried. Right? So in the event of a ground or artillery confrontation, the municipal security services in Sumy have announced to the population in general that an evacuation plan for the city has been put in place. Now, you got to remember, there's 270,000 people in Sumy, plus 30,000 relocated refugees from the east, 300,000 people. It's a lot of people to try to move if the Russians are coming over the hill. So in the event of combat, the governor will announce 11 assembly points to move civilians as quickly as possible. This could entail taking them to safety in other parts of the area or evacuation over a longer distance. 64,000 cars are ready to be requisitioned for this operation, should it be required. The authorities do not provide further information, thus the collection points will remain secret until the very last minute to avoid having population concentrations within artillery range of the Russians, right? And the source for this announcement is the State Emergency Services of Ukraine. So the governor of Sumy is taking the threat of a looming Russian incursion very seriously, and they're preparing for it. Last night, remember 20% of those drones got through? Well, this is a city in the Kyiv region, whose name I will not attempt to butcher, but you can see fires all over the town. Lots of drones got through. Something like 33 drones got through and hit their targets last night, hitting energy infrastructure, blacking out towns across Ukraine, and of course, doing damage to civilian buildings and houses. At least one hospital was hit, and there were injuries reported, but I am unaware of any fatalities at this time. Now, given that there are a double dozen people hospitalized, that may change. But right now, thank God, I'm unaware of any fatalities. I'm sorry, I forgot this was video. So you can hear all the car alarms going off, as we frequently do after these drone strikes, and you can see those fires burning. And this scene was repeated multiple times across Ukraine last night, tragically. Now, the good news is, of course, the Ukrainians are not sitting on their heels waiting. They've hit in what is being called the most massive drone strike of the war on Engels Air Force Base in Saratov, Russia. Now, Engels is the big military air base where they house the Tu-160 and the Tu-95 bombers, the big heavy bombers that Russia regularly uses to pound Ukraine. One of the things that's stored there's a secured, a hardened ammunition bunker or warehouse where they keep the Kh-101 missiles that so frequently unalive Ukrainian civilians. Well, it doesn't look like that warehouse is there anymore. The explosion from this was enormous, right? Like, not only do you get this incredible mushroom cloud a mile high, but the secondary explosions caused shock waves that literally tore the roofs off buildings miles away from the airbase and villages all in the surrounding oblast. So huge hit on what is likely, what's being reported in Euromaidan press, as one of the largest single storage facilities for Kh-101 missiles that the Russians have. And here we can see the fire that resulted in the aftermath of that. And you can get some sense, and this is actually just one of the fires on the territory of the base. There's at least 3 fires reported on the territory of the Engels Air Force Base. Now, good news. Ukraine has received another batch of F-16s. Again, just like with the first 2 batches, we don't know how many they've received. It is possible they could now have as many as 18 F-16s, or I guess 17, because they did lose the one, right, in a tragic friendly fire incident in the early days when the F-16s first arrived. But more F-16s is good news for the Ukrainians. And God knows they could use a little good news, right? Now, it appears that the minerals deal is dead. Dead. When asked about it, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, and now we have moved beyond the economic minerals deal, meaning they didn't get what they wanted, and so they're going to let it go. Isn't that big of them? She went on to say, we are at a place of peace. Are we? We're at a partial ceasefire. No, we are not. It's a stupid lie, or self-delusion rather than a lie. And we're moving towards a full ceasefire and a long-standing peace in this conflict. The way that these guys are handling it, nothing of the sort is the case. This is sheer nonsense. I will not comment on this person's personal life. Anyway, sheer nonsense. So, if Trump's given up on his minerals deal grift, if he can't steal the mineral wealth of this nation, what's he looking to grift next? How about Ukraine's nuclear power plants, the energy infrastructure of the country, which apparently he sprung on Zelensky in a call yesterday. So, according to a White House statement, President Trump discussed Ukraine's electrical supply and nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure. I'm going to have a stroke listening to this guy talk. I mean, really, I am going to have a stroke listening to this bullshit. This is such an obvious effort at more extortion, more blackmail of a Democratic ally that we are supposed to be helping in their time of need. No, we're going to grab, just like he grabs the pussy. We're going to grab the nuclear power plants. We're going to take the energy infrastructure because Ukraine owes us. This unenlightened, short-term self-interest is going to get us all killed, right? It's this kind of appeasement nonsense that could potentially embolden Putin to do something really stupid. You know, the UK and the French have nukes too. It's not just the US. And Trump can give you all the promises you want, but that's not going to stop Macron and Starmer from doing what they think is in the best interest of Europe. And Putin should remember that. Now, as if he understands that the American people are not happy with him, Trump is paying some lip service to the Ukrainians, saying that he's going to get Ukraine more Patriot missiles. We'll see. By the way, he's going to source them from the Europeans. We're not going to give Ukraine more Patriots. No. The people with the most Patriots in the world, no. We're going to get our trusted allies in Europe to give them up so that they can order more and put more money in the defense industrial complex in the United States. He has also said that he is committed to recovering the stolen Ukrainian children. But he is saying this in the wake of the Doge destruction, right? Like, they didn't just cancel the program to find and locate Ukrainian children. They destroyed all the evidence. They electronically shredded the database and all the metadata and all the records that could identify, that has the program out of Yale that has successfully identified 1,240 stolen Ukrainian children and returned them to their homes. There was maybe 30,000 names in that database, along with all of the details, all the metadata of their abductions and what we knew about them. And they didn't just cut, and the funding was nothing. It was, I think it was $8 million, right? In a federal budget that's measured in trillions of dollars. It was $8 million lousy dollars to help find the stolen children of Ukraine. And not only did they kill the project at Yale, they electronically shredded the database. That data is likely unrecoverable from what I understand right now. Maybe somebody's got a backup copy and they're keeping quiet about it because they don't want it destroyed. I hope somebody's got it. But again, Trump is paying, I think he's just paying lip service. We'll see if anything gets done about this. It seems highly unlikely to me. Now, James Aldrich asked me to find the video of Putin saying that Trump works for him. And here's the video. It's right off Russian state TV. And it's in Russian, right? Now, I've watched it with some Ukrainians. And they agree on what it says. If there's anybody that speaks Russian and wants to tell me that it says something different than this, I'll be happy to listen. But as I understand it, what happens here is he's in this meeting, he's on stage, he's being interviewed. It's a bunch of the oligarchs and important business figures and media people. And the interviewer says, Dmitry Peskov reminded me to tell you, you have a meeting with Trump, you don't want to be late. And Putin says, don't listen to that. That's his job. And everybody seems to agree that he's talking about making Trump wait. And he did make Trump wait for over an hour before he took his call while he was on stage here. Now, some of the Russian apologists are suggesting that no, he was talking about Peskov. But the Ukrainians that listened to this and translated it for me say no, he's talking about Trump, because in the second statement from Putin, he says basically Trump works for me. So this is what we're dealing with, right? This is who this is. Now, I'll play it for you. You can hear the names Trump, you can hear the name Peskov at the very least.
И учитывая, что, судя по заявлениям Дмитрия Сергеевича Пескова, ваш разговор должен до 18 часов состояться с Дональдом Трампом. Не знаю, насколько он...
Right, now that's let him wait, right? The first part is, don't listen to him, let him wait. Trump, that's his job, to wait on me. And look at the smiling faces in the crowd. They are emboldened and full of joy that they have a strong leader who makes the American president his bitch. That's where we're at. Now, all of this talk, this anti-Ukraine talk, is not going down well with Americans. So the most recent Gallup poll around support for Ukraine says that the 23% of Americans, up slightly from the last poll, says that the United States is doing the right amount for Ukraine. The United States is doing too much for Ukraine is down to about 30%. It's holding steady there at about 30%. The United States is not doing enough for Ukraine. It's 46%, up 16 points from last month. And that is because Americans believe in democracy, I think. They understand that Russia is our enemy. And nobody appreciated, or so many people did not appreciate, Trump's handling of Zelensky in the White House. Everybody saw that for what it was. A bullying attempt to extort the mineral wealth of Ukraine from its wartime hero president, who, by the way, has more support in Ukraine than he ever has, thanks to Trump. Now, look, if any of this is getting you down and you're feeling blue, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putin on the Ritz. Different types of wear a day. Coat pants with stripes and cutaway coats, perfect fits. Putin on the Ritz. That's our funny for today. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the news that we are waking up to for the vernal equinox, March 20th, 2025, day 1121 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. I'll see you in the live tonight. with more on all of this and anything else that comes down the pike today. Take care.